Hey, what's up guys? My name is Cherno and welcome to another Ludum Dare tip. Today we're going to talk about software, so what software you should probably be using for Ludum Dare, and this is also especially what I use, okay? There's obviously a lot of software out there in the universe, so you're free to use whatever you like, but these are the suggestions that I have for you, depending on your current setup, I guess, and also, of course, what I use when I make games. So, first up, we have an IDE, okay? An integrated development environment. This is an application, this is a program in which you create software. So it's a program in which you write code, okay? So the most obvious one, probably if you've been following my channel, is Eclipse, okay? Eclipse is up there. Eclipse, I have to say, is the best IDE in the world, okay? Now, they do have a version for pretty much every language, including stuff like JavaScript. They do have a C++ version of Eclipse. Of course, it doesn't come with the compiler, so you have to set that up yourself. I have used it for quite a bit. I don't like it too much, I have to say, but Eclipse for Java, if you're using anything else for Java other than Eclipse, then I don't know what you're doing, because Eclipse is where it's at. So again, if you're developing in Java or even in C++, Eclipse is certainly up there. Now, there is Visual Studio, okay? I should have put a Microsoft at the front there. So Microsoft Visual Studio is also free, okay? Eclipse is free and open source. Visual Studio isn't open source, but it is free. At least the Express edition is. There is professional editions that cost money, but they really have features that you probably won't need anyway. So Visual Studio Express is a free version of Microsoft Visual Studio, and that works with C++, C#, and a lot of other languages, such as Visual Basic and F# and all those other crazy ones that I've never used and never probably haven't even seen the syntax of. Yeah, so if you're using C++ or C#, my recommendation would be to use Visual Studio 2012 or higher. So 2012 or 2013. Not a big fan of 2010, I have to say. I don't like the interface, and a few of the things that I like just aren't there. But 2012 and 2013 are the Visual Studios to be using if you're developing in C++ or C#, okay? If you are developing in Java, use Eclipse. And if you're using ActionScript, you just use Flash, okay? That's what it's for. Sublime Text, if you're cool, okay? I put this there because if you're a cool cat and you like to be like all Indian stuff, you can use Sublime Text, okay? I really enjoy using Sublime Text for C++, even if I'm developing with libraries or whatever. And the reason is Sublime Text is just such an awesome application that it's just amazing, okay? If anyone here likes Notepad++, please unsubscribe from my channel because I hate you. No, but I have to say Sublime Text is probably the best text editor available in the universe, okay? And I do like it a lot more than Notepad++. But Sublime Text is beautiful if you're developing in C++. You've got integrated build tools. You can build your own build tools, make files, whatever. Again, if you're advanced. If you're not, then well, I don't know. Probably shouldn't be developing in C++ for a game in Ludum Dare. But Sublime Text is a viable option for development in C++. But know this: it will be slower than Visual Studio. Okay, it will take you longer to make a game in Sublime Text than Visual Studio. You'll probably have more fun with it. You'll probably have less frustration with it, maybe, as long as you get your makefile and build system figured out. But Visual Studio, of course, guys, like we're talking about freaking 48 hours to make a game. Like use an IDE. Sublime Text isn't an IDE, by the way. I'm not an idiot. But again, you could use Sublime Text with Java as well, but you know why? Eclipse is beautiful. Okay, moving on, 2D graphics. So if you're designing 2D graphics, whether that be menu, images, backgrounds, whatever, anything that's 2D, anything that's not a 3D model, basically, then you have paint.net. You can get that at getpaint.net, okay? That's the website, getpaint.net. That is a free little image editor. It does everything very, very well except one thing, text. It sucks with text. Do not use it for text. For text, I would use something like Adobe Photoshop, okay? Now, Photoshop versus Paint.net. If I'm doing pixel editing, so in other words, I'm using the pencil tool and I'm always just editing pixels in like an 8x8 size texture or 16x16, whatever, kind of retro old school graphics, Paint.net is a clear superior kind of thing here, okay? Photoshop is way too heavyweight. Paint.net is a nice lightweight application that will help you design and I guess develop Really nice textures and characters and all that stuff. So basically, Paint.net is a really good pixel editor. If you're moving up in the world to high resolution graphics, Adobe Photoshop is going to be for you. Does cost money, it's about $1,200, but you know, I guess you get what you pay for. It's really quite good. I personally am not as comfortable with Photoshop as I'd like to be, which leads me on to my next point. Adobe After Effects. Okay, so for those of you who know what Adobe After Effects is, it is it's a video compositing tool, right? So in other words, it's responsible for bringing together layers of video or layers of pixels and compositing them together, right? Hence the name compositing. Now, the reason I even put After Effects here is that I've been using After Effects for the better portion of probably 7 years now. And the reason is I used to use it extensively for work. I used to actually, for those of you who don't know, I used to make some television advertisements for a few companies, and I've done a lot of freelance video work, and that was really where I was at before I decided that I really wanted to dive into game development. And then I started like teaching myself Java and all that. So that's the history of the Cherno right there. But when I was making these videos and these ads, obviously they had a lot of video in them. So After Effects was like my best tool, honestly. And last Ludum Dare, actually, I used it for Ludum Dare 27, I think. I used it for I used it for making my character. Well, not really, but kind of making my character and making all my textures. And the game looked really good, okay, because After Effects has a lot of tools. Now, everything that you can do in After Effects, you can probably do in Photoshop, okay? I think Photoshop has the advanced 3D kind of layers and 3D perspective and stuff that After Effects does have. But again, I'm just not comfortable with Photoshop. I just don't know how to use it, okay? I've used Photoshop probably all up, I don't know, I've used it for a few years, but I've probably used it like for a collective amount of 20 hours or so. I've probably got hundreds and hundreds of hours on After Effects, maybe even 1,000. So After Effects is just my go-to, okay? It's if I want to get something done and it needs to look nice, After Effects is where I go for be it 2D graphics or whatever, okay? So After Effects is definitely viable. I've used it. I did use it last Ludum Dare. You guys would have seen me live stream it. It's phenomenal, okay? It's really good. It works as well for images as it does for video. Okay, that's pretty much it for 2D graphics. 3D graphics, okay? We're moving up to the big boy stuff now. Autodesk 3D Studio Max, okay? I've used this as much as After Effects, okay? Because if my client wants a jet flying through the scene, then well, 3D Max is where it's at. So Autodesk 3D Studio Max is phenomenal. Again, it's my favorite 3D modeling application out there. It's the one I've used the most, and pretty much the only one I've used because I've tried to use other ones. I can't because 3D Max is just so good. So I think it's up to like 2014 or something now. I haven't used any version past 2012, but it is a great 3D modeling application. And then again, like it's used extensively in the video game industry. Pretty sure it's the #1 modeling application out there. I know that Assassin's Creed was made, actually everything like was modeled and put together in 3D Studio Max as well, so you have that going for it. Now, Autodesk also make another one called Maya. I haven't put it on here. That's better for things like animation and film work, and the reason, again, it's better for film work is because of animation, but like honestly, for game development, 3D Studio Max is where it's at. You also have other alternatives, okay? After Effects I put there again because After Effects has a lot of 3D capabilities as well. A lot of people don't realize it is out there, but the problem with After Effects as well, and I did put this here, but the problem with well, the difference between those two is that, you know, 3D Studio Max will actually output a lot of times a 3D model, okay? That's what you want for games, all right? It's actually 3D data. After Effects will always output 2D data, okay? It will output like a video or an image. But if you're making something that needs to look 3D, obviously everything on the screen is 2D anyway when it gets rendered by your graphics card, everything's 2D. If you need something to kind of look like 3D, but it doesn't actually, you don't like move around it in 3D world or something, it just needs to kind of look 3D and official, you can use After Effects for that as well, okay? After Effects has great 3D capabilities. But, you know, 3D Studio Max is, again, what you should be using. Blender is a free alternative. 3D Studio Max costs like $3,500. I've still got my student licenses going since school. So I'm still good for that. But I know that Autodesk 3D Studio Max is expensive. It's like $3,500–4,000 or something. So it's really expensive, but Blender's free, okay? And Blender's really good as well. I've never actually committed to using Blender properly. I've obviously meddled around with it in like 5 years ago or something. But Blender's really good as well. So if you need to start somewhere, if you've never done this stuff before, then you probably don't have You've probably got like 2 days to learn Blender if you want to do something 3D for Ludum Dare, but Blender's free, okay? There's also Cinema 4D, okay? That is also a pretty good application. It costs money. Not as good as 3D Studio Max in my experience in the professional industry, but certainly viable. It's cheaper as well, so that's something to consider as well. Okay, so sound. Audacity. Okay, Audacity is actually what I'm using to record this this commentary. So Audacity is really good. It's free and it pretty much does the job done. If you've got a microphone, you want to record some birds, you want to record a nice loud clap, sorry if that scared you. You want to do something like that, sound effects, sound foley, you want to record that kind of stuff and add effects to it certainly, then Audacity is where it's at, okay? Now, it's free, which has that going for it. The next one is Adobe Audition. I used to use that all the time for recording commentaries as well because it's part of the Adobe Creative Suite. Yeah, Audition's really good, but I can't really make a case for it because at the end of the day, I use it for the same thing as Audacity. So to me, it's just Audacity with a different interface, but obviously costing money. So I can't really say Audition's good if you don't know Audacity. I mean, it's pretty hard not to know Audacity. You just hit the record button up the top, it records. But Audacity and Audition are pretty much the same. So yeah, I know Audition probably has more features. I just don't use them, so I can't talk about them. Sony SoundForge Pro again, Audition, Sony SoundForge Pro, Audacity, same shit, different day. It's pretty much the exact same software. Forge and SoundForge and Audition cost money. Audacity's free. So yeah, SFXR, I can barely pronounce that. SFXR and BFXR. They're really nice audio editing kind of sound generating utilities is what I should call them. Essentially, they're little things written in Flash that do sounds, and you can move these sliders around. And essentially, the idea with them is you can use sine and different like saw patterns and everything to generate sounds. So in other words, picture like you're playing Super Mario Brothers, and you kind of jump up and you collect a coin. You hear that pling sound. That's kind of what those two utilities will generate. So you can play around with those two certainly, and they will. As far as sound effects, that's pretty much what I use. Okay, for Genesis, that game that I made for Ludum Dare 24, I used, and for Ludum Dare 26's Squared game that I made, I used SFXR to generate the sound effects, okay? So sound effects, honestly, if you don't want to record them yourselves, check out SFXR and BFXR, okay? You can Google search them and they'll come up. They're very important. They're very good. Music. Now, I don't know how much I can talk about music because I know that a lot of you guys are probably game developers and not musicians. I myself happen to be a musician, as well as a filmmaker and a game developer. So that's kind of convenient, I guess. I happen to be a musician. I've been playing piano for like 15 years now, and guitar for like 7. So so I know my way around music, and I've been writing music professionally as well, so there's that. So Nudge, okay? I'm gonna start with something that you guys could probably use if you're just not musicians, because I know that it's obviously hard to write music if you're not a musician. But Nudge, inudge.net. Go to inudge.net, play around with that thing. It's basically a little little utility that has like a matrix of 16 by 16 squares. You can actually add more time to it. So the first loop will be, you'll see what I mean when you go to the site, but the first loop is like 4 seconds or something. You can actually make it longer if you so please. But essentially, you click on squares and you make music, okay? And there are different instruments and everything. It's really great. If you're not a musician but you want to add music to a game that you make yourself, which you have to, since it is Ludum Dare, and you have to make everything from scratch, Nudge is where it's at. Okay, seriously, go check that out. Or if you're kind of scared when it comes to the music part of your game, check that out. It's really great. I actually played around with it about 10 minutes before recording this, and it's fantastic. So seriously, go check Nudge out. And there's actually, I don't think there's a way to download it. I didn't find a way to download your result of music, but you could use something like Audacity to just record it. So you play it and then you record it using Audacity. You record what your computer's playing, and then you can use it in game. Okay, so that's fine. So again, if you're not a musician, if you don't have a lot of experience with music, and you can't really play any instruments, or you don't have the recording setups to record yourself playing, then Nudge is really, really good. That'll let you write music from scratch, essentially. inudge.net, and it's free, of course. So Apple Logic Pro is what I use. Apple Logic Pro, or just Logic Pro. Logic Pro 9 is about $1,200. Logic Pro 10, or Logic Pro X, came out, I think, half a year ago. It's $200. I bought it. It's amazing. It's on the App Store. If you've got a Mac, get it. If you're serious about music, I guess. If you're not, just don't just drop $200 for no reason because Cherno said so. But it's really good. Okay. Quick note about that. I know that a lot of people might be hesitant about buying that because Final Cut 7, which is Apple's video editing kind of software suite, Final Cut Studio like 7 or Final Cut 7 essentially was really good, really good. I actually used that for a lot of time for a lot of my professional life. And then Final Cut 10, it was complete garbage. Now, not so, okay? Apple Logic Pro 10 has everything that 9 has plus more, and the interface is just a lot better now. So in other words, Logic Pro is really good, okay? And that's what I use to essentially record myself playing a MIDI keyboard, record myself freaking playing guitar, playing bass guitar, pianoing, singing, whatever, okay? Logic Pro is where it's at. Alternatives, Ableton Live. I used that a lot before I used Logic Pro. Ableton Live is really good as well. I personally prefer Logic Pro. I think the inbuilt instruments, I guess the instruments that you come, I mean, you buy a Logic Pro for $200 and you get an optional 36 gigabytes of instruments that you can download for free, of course. So the library that comes with Logic Pro is just a lot better than the library that comes with Live. So that's why I pick Logic Pro above Live. But Ableton Live is certainly very good as well. Okay, if you know Ableton Live and you're like, well, Cherno is recommending Logic Pro. I don't even have a Mac. I'm just going to go out and buy a Mac Pro, and then I'm going to learn Logic Pro, and then it's going to freaking be 2 days away. But I'm going to make sure I do that stuff before Let 'em Dead. Don't. Okay, Ableton Live is perfectly viable as well, as is Reason. Okay, I think it's shit. I forgot the company who made Reason. I should really look this up right now. Come on, it's Propellerheads. So Propellerheads made Reason. Reason's really good. I used to use Reason a lot. If you're used to working in a studio and you're used to dealing with hardware rather than software, which potentially could be you, I guess, if you're working in a recording studio or I don't know, it's somewhere that has a lot of sound devices and you're dealing with hardware and stuff like hardware mixers, hardware effects, and hardware processors, audio processors, all that stuff. Reason is for you because you can actually, I guess you can actually use patch cables to connect stuff together. It's really cool. So Reason is really good for that as well. Pro Tools is more of a recording, I think. Anyway, last time I checked it out, probably like 5 years ago, it was more of a recording than a creation kind of thing. So otherwise you don't have MIDI. Well, you would now, but anyway, Pro Tools is also a really good one. It's the only one out of those that I haven't used though, so that's why I put it last, but I know it's really good. So anyway, that's pretty much it, guys. That's the software that I use. That's the software that you should use. Follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/thecherno, and twitch.tv/thecherno is where I'm going to be live streaming myself doing Let 'em Dare 28 over the next, well, it's going to last for 48 hours, but that stream, of course, will start in 2 days when Let 'em Dare does, okay? So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of, well, it's not really an episode, but I hope you guys enjoyed this Let 'em Dare tip, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.